Are you ready to have Tobey Maguire back in a Spider-Man movie? Are you ready for him to be playing Uncle Ben? Well, buckle up because we're gonna make that case right now. The saying goes, no one stays dead in comics, except Uncle Ben. But the saying used to be, no one stays dead in comics except Uncle Ben and Bucky. And then Bucky came back to life. Is it finally time for Uncle Ben to get in on that comic book revolving door of death? Has this time finally come thanks to the MCU, the Multiverse, and Tobey Maguire? Shush. It's a great idea, okay?
I want Spider-Man!
We're gonna show you why. While we wait for Phase 4 to get underway, the trickle of news from Marvel has managed to create as much excitement as there is speculation. And the epicenter of all of that has to be the third Spider-Man movie for the MCU. It's the movie that almost wasn't, and now it's more than we could possibly imagine. Even before Disney and Sony's will they or won't they, there was a lot of promises. Peter Parker has been outed by none other than J. Jonah Jameson, played by none other than J.K. Simmons, reprising the role from the picture-perfect cast of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Turns out that throwback magic was only the beginning, as we learn now that Jamie Foxx will also be reprising his role as Electro, this time from Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man. The icing on that cake came with the news that Mr. Multiverse himself, Doctor Strange, would fill in the role of responsible adult in the third movie. With actors from previous Spider-Man franchises making their appearance in the next Spider-Man and the Multiverse set to play a big role in the MCU going forward, it didn't take long for murmurs of a live-action Spider-Verse bringing together the three actors who've played the wall-crawler on the silver screen. With rumors of Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire joining the Spider-Verse, speculation has run wild at what their roles will be. For a lot of fans, Tobey Maguire will always be their Spider-Man. Evil jazz dance or not, he's their man, and he's the first person to bring the role to life since the ill-fated live-action TV show from the 70s. Oh yeah, there was a live-action Spider-Man show in the 70s. I do not think Nicholas Hammond will be invited to the multiverse, though. We submit to you that the best role for Tobey Maguire to play in the upcoming Spider-Man movie is Uncle Ben. There's a reason that Uncle Ben is the last man not standing on that list of characters who do not come back from the dead. Uncle Ben's death and his oddly rhetorical advice to his nephew is not just the moral imperative of Spider-Man, but by extension, the Marvel Universe itself. It's a phrase so ingrained in the culture that it was quoted in a Supreme Court ruling. Say it with us.
With great power comes great responsibility.
That responsibility is driven home when Peter lets a thief go to get back at a shady wrestling promoter, and that thief goes on to kill Uncle Ben. That becomes the driving factor for Peter, as he paraphrases in Captain America Civil War, "When you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen."
They happen because of you.
Like Erskine telling Steve Rogers that he has heart, or Yinsen telling Stark not to waste his life, Uncle Ben's call to action for Peter is what drives him forward. All the more because Uncle Ben isn't some other scientist he just met, but his kindly, loving uncle, who he personally failed by not doing something. Since Uncle Ben's death is so important to the mythos and ideology of Spider-Man, he can't come back from the dead like the others. But he can appear in the third Spider-Man movie in the MCU, and Tobey Maguire is perfect. Let's see how. There are three scenarios where Tobey is an ideal pick. Let's break them down. First, the cameo. It's the easiest. It requires the least amount of explanation or story stretch because it's what we're used to. In the MCU, since it was following two Spider-Man franchises, we haven't seen Spider-Man's origin story. Outside of Superman and Batman, Spider-Man's origin might be the best-known comic book origin, and having to watch it a third time waiting for a Spider-Man movie to start was deemed too much. But in the third movie, as Peter does some soul-searching, what with his secret out and a villain from another franchise menacing him, he might reach back to some of the words of wisdom from his uncle, and in those flashbacks, Tobey Maguire could be Uncle Ben. For the viewers, it's their Spider-Man, the one that brought them to the dance so many years ago. Literally. Nope, not done making fun of that jazz dance. It's a classic cameo, like Lou Ferrigno appearing in two Hulk movies or Garrett Morris appearing in Ant-Man after playing the shrinky-dinky hero in a famous SNL sketch. But let's amp things up a bit. He's Uncle Ben, but he breaks the tradition. He is brought back to life the same way he briefly came back to life in the comics by having Scarlet Witch trying to make an ideal world for everyone when her powers spiral out of control, like maybe, say, at the end of WandaVision. So Tobey's Uncle Ben being back is a break of reality and a tragic choice that Peter has to make to come back to a real reality. One that maybe puts his identity back in the box, but he loses something, similar to One More Day. But then there's an even juicier and yet more complicated option. Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man and just so happens to look like this universe's Uncle Ben. That would mean that when Tom Holland meets Maguire, he not only learns that there are other Spider-Mans, whatever, in other realities, but this one, who has been Spider-Man for a while, looks like his Uncle Ben, giving Parker that less problematic role model he's been looking for all this time. Well, except for the jazz dancing. And that's why Tobey Maguire is the best choice for Uncle Ben. How do you want your Maguire, Uncle Ben? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not subscribe to CBR for the latest videos in your inbox. Thanks for watching. Ooh yeah, bust a move, Peter.